Alright, hey everyone. Today we're going to learn how to use Blazor WebAssembly. Now, Blazor WebAssembly is a very interesting web framework, and it's actually front-end, that allows you to compile your C# code into front-end code that can be used very similarly to JavaScript. The people over at Microsoft have used WebAssembly to make this possible, as it takes it and just compiles it over, and can run as efficiently as it would on the server. Alright, now let's go ahead and just build out our first front-end WebAssembly app. To do this, just type .NET new Blazor WASM -o and just write the name of your file. I'm just calling mine Blazor tutorials. Okay. Once that's done, it's just going to go ahead and create it, and as you can see, there's a file over here. CD into that file. Blazor tutorials. Okay. Once that's done, the first thing we're going to want to do is just understand this basic file structure. Okay, we currently have we have 5 files and then 4 extra. We have 5 folders and 4 extra files. So the first thing we're going to explore is Blazor tutorial.cs proj. Inside of this file, what we're going to have is all the dependencies, such as the JSON version and the different components. Now, as we're going to continue on with this tutorial, more and more values will be added here. We're going to do this via the NuGet package manager, which is just a package manager, similar to how JavaScript has npm and Python has pip. All right, the next one we have is our program.cs, which will just compile all of our code into WebAssembly. The next one we have is _imports.razor. Now, .razor is a very different file structure if you haven't used Microsoft's products before. Basically, it lets you use C# with HTML, which is exactly what we need. So all of these are different dependencies that are going to be shared throughout all files. Okay. The next thing we have is just www.root, which would have stuff like assets like CSS. We have Bootstrap inside of here automatically installed, so that'll actually make it a lot easier to design components. All right, the next thing we have is a shared layout. So inside of here, we have our sidebars, and all of these are going to be shared throughout all of our, Razor pages. And I'm going to show you guys actually how you can modify that instead. Okay, now the next thing we have is properties. This is just a basic dependencies again. The next thing we have that's important is pages. Now inside of pages is going to be basically the stuff that you're going to want the server side or the clients to see. Right? For example, we have a counter over here. All right. Now, all this code looks fine and dandy, but let's actually see how it looks. Now, in the case that you want to run your code, all you're going to write is just .NET run. Okay. And what that's going to do is take your code, begin to build it. And as you can see, there's a binary that's being built right over here. And this binary is then just going to execute over into it's going to go ahead and execute into a file. Or into the web. Okay, I believe it's done, so let's just go ahead and view this out. All right, so as you can see over here, we have 3 different Razor pages. We have the home page, we have the counter page, and we have fetch data. All right, now the counter page is what we discussed a little bit earlier, and as you can see, as I'm clicking it, this value is dynamically changing. Let's actually understand how this is actually working. So, to do this, let's just go over here and head on over to counter. So the first thing, as you can see, was done was they created an integer in C# called current count. And then we just displayed that over in a simple paragraph title. Okay. After that, what we did is we designed a function called increment count, which just added that value to the integer. And this value is called upon each time the button is clicked. And just like that, it's all done in a very concise way. All right. Now, I have a riddle for you. Let's suppose if I print out the value of console.writeLine of the current count. Where do you guys think it's going to be printed? Take a moment to think for yourself. All right? Now, many of you guys might be thinking it's going to be printed on the terminal, like any other application. Turns out you're wrong. Instead, what it's going to do is it's going to be printed right onto our console on the web. Allow me to show you guys. So right-click inspect, okay, and head on over to console. When I click me, as you can see, the values are beginning to change. So this goes to show that even though we are writing code on even though it appears that we're writing code on a server, it's in reality it's a full web framework. All right. Now the next thing we're going to want to learn about is Blazor Forms. All right. So what are Blazor Forms? Blazor Forms are simply just a part of the Blazor web framework that allow you to design interactive forms with a lot less code. And they get you a lot more features out of the box, such as authentication. This way you need to write less code and you can build a better performant app. Today we're going to be making a very small login form. So the first thing that you will want to do is create a basic model for your app, or for your form. So to do this, just go ahead and just cd yourself back into the folder. Okay, and what you're going to want to do is just make a basic C# file that's going to have your login model. I'm going to call my file loginmodel.cs and make a class, and make sure it's a public class, right? Because you need it to be accessed within your Razor files, right? Call it a public class loginmodel.cs, or login model, no CS. Okay, and make sure that you're also using the systems component model. All right, so it's just using system.componentModel.data annotation. And I'm going to explain to you why this is necessary. When you import this module, what it allows you to do is create a required setter inside of your model. This way, some of your data will be required from the user and some won't be. This is a form of authentication to make sure that the data that you're getting is actually added in and not just a null value. Okay, so before any value that's required, you're going to put square braces, and then you're going to write with a capital R required. Then you're going to write you're going to first of all write a public variable, and it's going to be whatever data type you need. So for this, we're just going to be using two strings. String username, all right? And what you will want to do is just get the value and set that value. So what get and set basically does is it just grabs that value from like the user, and then it just sets it to this variable. You're going to want to go ahead and repeat this exact same thing with the password. All right, now that that's done, we have our basic bare bones of our form. The next thing we're going to want to do now is go ahead and actually design the UI for it. All right, so by default, the way that Blazor works is that it's connected to Bootstrap, so we don't need to really focus on any of the CSS. Instead, why don't you guys just head on over to counter.razor, and inside of here, first thing you will want to do is go into your code, this code segment here, and create a public variable that is an object of the fetch data. So we're going to call it, not fetch data, of the login model. So it's going to be called a public login model called login model. Okay. So what this, and just call it new. So what this does is it creates a new object of the login model, and we'll be able to add in values over here. So now that that's done, the next thing we're going to want to do is just design out the basic form. Now, unlike normal HTML, which has the form tag, we can also use these special form tags made by Blazor, the creators of Blazor. So first thing you will want to do, and this is optional by the way, is just make two div tags. Wait, nope, that's not it. Div tags, right? The reason why I'm just making this div tag is just to make it prettier. All right, and I'm just going to make a card class first of all. And this is already pre-created by the way. And then I'm also going to have a container, right? So by doing this, it's not really going to make our form. Instead, it's just going to make our form just look better. Okay. Now that this is done, the next thing we're going to want to do is actually design our form. So first thing we're going to do is open up a opening, what are these even called? The greater than sign, and write edit form. Edit form. All right. Now you've created a basic, now you can actually start adding in form attributes. But before that, what you're going to want to do is first of all specify the model that this is inheriting. So to do this, just type with a capital M model is equal to, and it's going to be equal to at the login model over here. Okay. Now that this is done, we're also going to want to have a function over here that's going to go ahead and run once we've submitted it. It's going to be called onValidSubmit. Okay, and we're going to set that equal to a function that we're just going to create right now. And it's going to be called at handle valid submit. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and make this function right here in the code segment. So to do this, all we just have to do is just make a private function, private void, and boom. All right, now we have our basic function over here, which is going to be called upon over here. Now inside of this function, you guys can do whatever you want. I'm just going to print out the values of what the user has written. Okay. The first thing we're going to want to go ahead and do is create a username. To create our username, we're going to go ahead and include an h3 tag. Okay, and it's going to just write username. All right, the next one we're going to have is a basic input text. So input text is something special to Blazor Forms, and what it does, it's slash like that. What input text allows you to do is specify the type of text that you want, similar to how a normal text field works in HTML, okay? And what you can do is you can have an ID, so my ID is just going to be username, okay? And then we also have a bind value, at bind value. Now what the bind value does is it allows you to take the value from that form, okay, from this form, and bind it to an object or to a variable. Bind value. What I'm going to put this in is going to be equal to the login model dot username. Okay. The next thing we're going to want to do is just go ahead and break the line. And we're going to want to repeat this exact same process, but for the password. I'm just going to write password here. And the type is going to be equal to password as well. So yeah, as you notice, there's a lot of things that are taken over from HTML. And in fact, if I were to go ahead and show this to you guys later on in the HTML, like if you were to inspect this, it's going to re-render as regular HTML. All right, and I'm going to get into that in a bit. Password. And it's going to be the login model dot password. Okay. And I'm also just going to want to go ahead and just make an ending tag for data annotation validator. Okay. All right, no. Here we go. Yeah. The reason why we're doing this is because if you look into the back of the file structure, there's actually an opening tag inside of one of these files for Blazor Forms, right? And you have to end it over here. Okay. All right. So after this, what we're going to want to do is go ahead and actually add in a submit button. All right. So when we add in the submit button, okay, it's going to actually start processing the work. So to make a submit button, all you're going to want to do is just create a regular button tag. Okay. And just write submit to that. Okay. But what you're going to want to do is make sure that the type of the button is equal to submit. And make sure it's with a lowercase s. Okay. Submit. And make sure that the class, and you can also make it a bit prettier by connecting it to the bootstrap. So to do that, just write class is equal to button primary. So now it's going to have a very bluish color instead of looking like the regular ugly one. Okay. And the next thing you will also want to do is just put in the ending tag of validation summary. Validation summary end tag. All right. And okay. And then inside of here, now let's just go ahead and actually print this out as well. So to print this out, we're just going to use console.writeLine. And we're just going to go login model dot username. Username, username. Here we go. Okay. And login model dot password. Okay. All right. So now that that's done, let's just go ahead and run this code. All right. I'm just going to go ahead and just unfold that. It should build in a moment. Yep. Okay. Now let me just show you guys what I'm talking. Okay. All right. Sorry about that. My camera just accidentally disconnected. Or no, my mic, I mean. Okay. So inside of here, let's just head on over to counter. And as you can see, there's a username and a password field. Okay. So first of all, let's just go ahead and just try and submit this, okay? As you can see, both of these values, it's already showing us an error that these are required. And all we really had to do was just write simply required instead of writing anything else. Now let's just head on over to console and go ahead and just write a username and a password, okay? I'll just write my name Yassa and a password of password. So notice how when I just wrote those, it automatically turned green. So this is the type of functionality that I'm talking about that Blazor has out of the box. When I submit it, it already prints this out. Now there's one more thing I also want to show you guys, and it is how this form is generated in HTML. So as you can see, it's actually creating an, wait, I'm going to go ahead and just, there we go. Yeah, as you can see, these are just basic input tags. What Blazor does is it takes those tags that we've written and modifies them to raw HTML instead of us having to write much more complex front-end code. So yeah, this is one of the very good examples of how Blazor makes things easier for you. The next thing we're going to be exploring is called cookie authentication. Alright, so what are cookies? Cookies are a temporary variable of data that you can store inside of your web browser. And the idea is that these temporary values of data are specific to each user that's using the site. For example, today we're going to learn how to read and write cookies of the person's username. And we're going to be using that form that we built like a minute ago. Okay? Now, the main reason why I'm teaching you guys this is because we're going to be using some JavaScript functions to interact with cookies while still calling those functions via C#. This way you're going to be able to learn how to use C# inside of our C# WebAssembly applications. So let's first of all create the functions inside of JavaScript. To do this, what you're going to want to do is head on over to www root directory, head on over to index.html. Alright? Now inside of here, what you're going to want to do is go after the body and make a script tag. Okay? Once you're done with a script tag, what you're going to want to do next is go ahead and just create, we're going to go ahead and create 3 functions. But we're only going to be using 2 functions, but the third function is just so that you could use it on your own if you want. So the first function we're going to create is just making a cookie. To do this, just write function. Okay. And as you can see, some boilerplate code already was created, right? And I'm going to call this function Blazor set local storage, okay? And the parameters I'm just going to have are the key and the value, right? So the key is just the title, and that the value is just the value of the key. And then I'm going to go local storage dot set item. And I'm going to set it to the key and the value. And it's going to automatically determine, or it's automatically going to understand that the first value that's put in is the key, the second value is the, value. The next thing we're going to do is just go ahead and just get that value. So then this way we could actually read the value from the local storage. To do this, I'm going to make another function and call it Blazor get local storage. Okay, and this is just going to have the key. Inside of here, I'm going to go ahead and actually return a value. Okay, and I'm going to return local storage dot get item, which is going to be your key. All right, and let's go ahead and actually learn how to remove it as well. So I'm going to make a function, and I'm going to call it Blazor remove cookie. Okay, and it's going to have the key of the cookie. All right. And it's going to just go ahead and just go local storage dot remove item, and the item being the key. All right. Now that these 3 are done, we've actually now created our functions for our WebAssembly to now call upon. So let's head on over back into counter.razor, where we made our form, as you guys can see over here. And what we're going to want to do is actually just head on over all the way down here. All right. So first thing we're going to want to do is just go ahead and include JavaScript, right? Because by default, it doesn't include JavaScript. So let's go ahead and inject that. To do this, type @inject IJS runtime JS runtime. Now by default, this should be downloaded inside of your it should be downloaded inside of your files. But if it's not, then what you'll want to do is just go ahead and use, it's inchecked. Okay, there we go. Yeah, now in the scenario that it doesn't work, what you're going to want to do is just go ahead and just go .NET add, and you're just going to want to add JS runtime, all right? Or if you guys are using Visual Studio, you guys can just go into the command palette, and you're going to have the NuGet package manager by default, and you're just going to want to write in JS runtime. Okay, and it just should show up like right over there. Okay, but it should be downloaded. All right. Now the next thing we're going to want to do is just go ahead and call upon the function, right? So in onHandleSubmit, currently we're just printing these values out. All right. Well, let's just go ahead and comment this out for now. Okay. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take the value of the login model.username and write it in. All right. First thing I'm going to do is just go ahead and make a await function. Okay. Wait, what? No. Await. Wait, this is going to be async await, by the way. I'm going to explain this in a moment. Okay, so basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to run the function, but I'm going to use the term await because this is happening in another script, right? And I want this to happen concurrently because I don't want the web page to freeze up as it's writing it because that'll frustrate the end user. So instead I'm going to use the await function and call the JS runtime, okay? I'm going to invoke void async, all right? And what invoke void async means is run an async function, and it's going to just return void, okay? You don't need to know the value. Then you're going to write the name of your function. So the name of our function was Blazor get local storage, okay? And then what we're going to go ahead and write is the key of the cookie. So the key of the cookie is just going to be username, colon, okay? The next thing we're going to have is our login model.username. Let's go ahead and paste that. Okay. Yeah, and then boom, now we've written the value to the cookie. Okay. Now let's go ahead and actually create another variable over here, and it's going to be a dynamic variable. And the reason why we're making a dynamic variable is because what I want to do is I want to go ahead and just grab that value from the cookies again. Okay, and then I'm just going to go ahead and just print that out. All right. So what I'm going to go is I'm going to go validate is equal to await. And it's going to be JS runtime. And this time what I want to do is I actually want to return a string, right? And I'm going to return a string, and then I'm going to write the name of my function, right? So the name of my function is just Blazor get local storage. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to just go ahead and just grab the key value, which is just going to be username, all right? Oh yeah, and we have to add a semicolon, all right? JS runtime. Oh yeah, wait, sorry. JS runtime dot invoke async. There we go. Now that that's done, let's go ahead and just print this out. So dot write line validate. Okay. Now let's just go ahead and run this function. All right. It's just going to take a moment to build. Okay. All right, now it's open. Okay. Now head on over to counter, and I'm just gonna pop open the inspector grill. Okay. And there's two reasons why I'm gonna open this up. One is just to see the value of the cookie, and two, as you remember, we actually printed out the value, right? So by printing it out, and if it prints out, that means that a value has been made. So I'm just gonna write my name and password. I'm gonna print it out. As you can see, my name does appear, so that means that something is happening with the cookies. To confirm this, head on over to Application and go to Local Storage over here. And if you click on the local storage, you'll be able to see my value. All right? And yeah, that's just how cookies work. Now, that's going to be the end of it for this video. If you guys like the video, please leave a comment or like the video. I'm going to see if this video does get a good attraction, then I'll probably make a second part to it. Thank you guys for watching. Have a nice day.